I spent 2 hours reacting to my 2025 season prediction video only to realize that the audio didn't record. But instead of giving up, I put together an even better video to show you guys just how stupid my predictions were. And you're not gonna believe who I had winning the Super Bowl. But first, let's start off with the standings predictions. And in the NFC North, in last place, I had the Green Bay Packers. And low-key, as a Vikings fan, I'm just a Jordan Love hater. I still don't think he's good, but he's definitely not that bad. In reality, I just really don't like the Packers, and that's why I had them rated so low. And in third place in the NFC North, I have the Chicago Bears. And honestly, I just didn't believe in them. I have seen so many times where the Bears had a great offseason and made great moves, and they just didn't live up to expectations. But I gotta be honest, Caleb Williams has taken a real step forward, and this Bears team could be scary in the playoffs. And in second place in the NFC North, I had the Minnesota Vikings. And hear me out, man, hear me out. I believed in JJ McCarthy. He was going into a Kevin O'Connell offense with one of the best situations a rookie quarterback could ask for. And man, he just couldn't do it. I still think he could be good, but this year was very, very disappointing. And in first place in the NFC North, I had the Detroit Lions. And honestly, I just didn't realize how good Ben Johnson was. Their superstars like Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra I thought would be great, and they were great. But Jared Goff just couldn't keep it together in big moments, and they ended up losing the games that counted. And surprisingly, they actually finished last in the NFC North with a 9-8 record. And my NFC North predictions were pretty bad. My bottom two teams both made the playoffs, and my top two teams both missed the playoffs. But the NFC East started off a little bit better because I had coming in last place the New York Giants. And they actually had a pretty good season despite their bad record. They showed that Jackson Dart and Cam Scatabo are two of the most exciting young players in the game, along with Malik Neighbors coming back. Their future really looks bright. And in third place in the NFC East, I had the Dallas Cowboys. And I actually had some hope for them. I thought they were going to make a bounce back, and to be fair, they certainly weren't as bad as last year, but they weren't that great. George Pickens obviously took a huge step forward and showed that he can be the number one for that team over CeeDee Lamb, along with Javonte Williams showing that he is a true workhorse back, and Dak throwing for some of the most yards in the league. The Cowboys could be scary next year. And in second place in the NFC East, I had the Washington Commanders. And Jaden Daniels was just so good last year that I couldn't rate them anything lower than this. However, he got hurt. What are you supposed to do? You've got Marcus Mariota at quarterback, along with Jeremy McNichols at running back. That's just a recipe for disaster. However, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt showed he can be a really good running back, and hopefully that's what he will be. And in first place in the NFC North, I had the Philadelphia Eagles. And boy, with Saquon coming off of a 2,000-yard season, how are you supposed to give them anything but first place? They just won the Super Bowl. They've got one of the best rosters in the league. They were the best team in the league coming into the year, and there was no reason to not put them in first. However, this year, they did take a bit of a step back, but I'm not worried about them. I still think they could be good in the playoffs. And in the NFC West, in last place, I had the Seattle Seahawks. And this is by far my worst take of the year. I had them coming in last place, 5-12. As a Vikings fan, seeing what Sam Darnold did at the end of the year, I just didn't think he would be able to do it with a bad O-line. But it turns out that O-line was actually great, and Jackson Smith-Njigba is maybe the best wide receiver in all of the NFL, and they even earned themselves a first-round bye. They could legitimately win the Super Bowl. They are one of the best teams in the league, and boy did I screw up on this. And in third place in the NFC West, I had the Arizona Cardinals. And boy was this a tough year for them. They started off with James Conner going down for the season, having to rely on guys like Emari Demercado and Bam Knight, along with Kyler Murray being out. Their big Bucks quarterback is now out and is probably not going to be on the team next year. I also thought that Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to take a big step forward, but he just didn't. Michael Wilson did fill that role pretty well, though. And Trey McBride proved that he is still one of the best tight ends in the league. And in second place in the NFC West, I had the Los Angeles Rams. And this was an amazing year for them. They have Matthew Stafford, who might win MVP, along with Puka Nacua, who looks like the best wide receiver in the NFL, and Devontae Adams, who looks like the best wide receiver 2 in the NFL. That defense looks amazing with Jared Verse, and Kyren Williams and Blake Corum might be the best 1-2 punch in the league. And in first place in the NFC West, I have the San Francisco 49ers. And what a great year for the 49ers. Brock Purdy towards the end of the season looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Christian McCaffrey put up another Offensive Player of the Year worthy season. George Kittle looked like one of the best tight ends in the league. Overall, a really good year for the 49ers. They did have pretty bad injury luck, but they're still in the playoffs and could even win the Super Bowl. And starting off the NFC South, I had in last place the New Orleans Saints. What a weird year for the Saints. They started off the year with Spencer Rattler, and then they brought in Tyler Shuck, who actually looked pretty good, one of the best rookies this year. Chris Olave had another good season because he was healthy, and they had some of their younger running backs really show up, like Kendre Miller and Devin Neal. And in third place in the NFC South, I had the Carolina Panthers. And they actually had a pretty good season. Bryce Young took a big step forward, showing he is their franchise guy. Rico Dowdle looked like one of the best running backs in the league for a little bit. Ted McMillan showed that he is a wide receiver 1 for years to come. And they even made the playoffs. While I don't expect them to get far, it is a big accomplishment for a young team. And in second place in the NFC South, I had the Atlanta Falcons. And what a disappointing year for the Falcons. Michael Penix looked great in the games he did play in. Bijan Robinson showed that he is one of the best running backs in the league. Drake London showed that he is one of the best red zone threats in the league, and even Kyle Pitts took a big step forward this year. And in first place in the NFC South, I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what a disappointing season for the Buccaneers. They started off as the best team in the NFL, and they fell off so hard that it needs to be studied. Baker Mayfield looked so good. Bucky Irving was playing well until he got hurt. Mike Evans also got hurt. That fall off was crazy. I have hope for them next year, though. And jumping over to the AFC North, in last place, I had the Cleveland Browns. And what an interesting year for the Browns. They obviously had a bad record, but to me, Shedeur Sanders looked like their franchise quarterback for years to come. Quinshon Judkins looked like an excellent running back, and he will be great in the future. Harold Fannin looked like an excellent tight end. And, not to mention, Myles Garrett broke the frickin' sack record. I really think this team could be good in the near future. And in third place in the AFC North, I had the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what a year for the Steelers. They started off by getting rid of Pickens and acquiring Metcalf and getting Rodgers out of free agency. Rodgers looked like a pretty good quarterback, along with Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren looking like a great 1-2 punch at running back. Metcalf had a bit of an underwhelming season, but that game to clinch the playoffs was one of the craziest I have seen. I don't think they're going to make it far in the playoffs, but congrats to them on another winning record season. And in second place in the AFC North, I had the Cincinnati Bengals. And what a frustrating year for the Bengals. Yet another season where Joe Burrow just can't stay healthy. Despite that, they still played very well at the end of the season. Joe Burrow showed that he is still a top 5 quarterback in the league. Jamar Chase showed he's still a top 5 receiver in the league. And I do think they can be good next year if everyone stays healthy. And in first place in the AFC North, I had the Baltimore Ravens. And what a season for the Ravens. They started off ice cold, and then Lamar got hurt and didn't turn back into himself for a few weeks. Derrick Henry looked like one of the best running backs in the league at the age of 31, along with Zay Flowers continuing to show that he is a very good NFL receiver. And they would be in the playoffs right now if Tyler Loop could just make a field goal. Moving on to the AFC East, in last place, I had the New York Jets. And what a disappointing season for the Jets. There's pretty much nothing good that came out of it. Justin Fields looked really bad. Garrett Wilson got hurt. The defense looked terrible with 0 total interceptions, and they didn't even secure the first overall pick. This was a pretty awful season for the Jets. In third place in the AFC East, I had the Miami Dolphins. Overall, it was a pretty bad season for the Dolphins. Tua was so bad that he got benched. Tyreek Hill's leg snapped in half. and they didn't even secure the first overall pick. Devon Achane did look really good, and Jalen Waddle looked good at times, but overall, a pretty bad season for the Dolphins. And in second place in the AFC East, I had the New England Patriots. And boy, what a season for the Patriots. Drake May looked like a legitimate MVP candidate. They did have a bit of an easy schedule, so they might be on fraud watch in the playoffs, but they had such an amazing season. Their defense looked great, Drake May looked great, and now they are headed into the playoffs hot, and I do believe that they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. And in first place in the AFC East, I had the Buffalo Bills. And this was certainly a little bit of a down year for the Bills. However, they still made the playoffs, and they can still win the Super Bowl. Josh Allen looked like a one-man wrecking crew out there, along with James Cook looking like one of the best running backs in the league, and even finished the year with the most rushing yards of any player in the league. I do think they can win the Super Bowl, but I think it's a bit of a long shot this year. Moving on to the AFC West, in last place, I had the Los Angeles Chargers. I have just never been a big Justin Herbert believer. I've always thought he was good, but nothing special. However, he did take a big step forward this year. Omarion Hampton also played really well, but he was hurt for a lot of the year. And the Chargers receivers room, they all stepped up. I would be surprised to see them move on in the playoffs, but I think it's a great accomplishment for the Chargers to make it. And in third place in the AFC West, I had the Las Vegas Raiders. And what a bad year for the Raiders. They ended up with the first overall pick, which is great, but I had some hopes for them. I thought Ashton Jeanty was going to go off to a really hot start in the NFL, but that O-line just was slowing him down so much. Brock Bowers did play well when healthy, but Geno Smith looked terrible. Overall, not a lot comes out of this year except for the fact that they have the first overall pick and can hopefully target a quarterback in the draft. And in second place in the AFC West, I had the Denver Broncos. And I was hopeful for the Broncos this year. I thought they had one of the best defenses in the league coming into the year, and they did. Bo Nix took a big step forward along with Courtland Sutton and RJ Harvey. They played great this year, and they now have the number 1 seed. I really think they could win a Super Bowl this year. And in first place in the AFC West, I had the Kansas City Chiefs. And what a strange year for the Chiefs. They lost almost every one-score game. That is nothing like the Chiefs I know. Patrick Mahomes did tear his ACL towards the end of the year, but at that point they were already out of the playoffs. It was such a strange year for the Chiefs, and to say that they were 6-11 feels like a crime. Moving on to the AFC South, in last place, I had the Tennessee Titans. And this was a pretty rough year for the Titans. Cam Ward did look good towards the end, and they had their young receivers break out like Alec Iomenor and Shamir Dike. However, it was a pretty bad season overall, and they're hoping to get a better pick in the draft. And in third place in the AFC South, I had the Indianapolis Colts. And what a year for the Colts. They started off as one of the hottest teams in the league. Daniel Jones looking like an MVP candidate. Jonathan Taylor on pace to have one of the best running back seasons ever. And then they completely collapsed. Daniel Jones tore his Achilles. They had to bring in Phillip Rivers, and it was just all downhill from there. And they ended up missing the playoffs despite starting the season 7-1. And in second place in the AFC South, I had the Jacksonville Jags. And what a great season for the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence at the end of the year took that leap we've been waiting for and finally looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They added Jacoby Myers at the trade deadline, who looks like one of the better wide receivers in the league, along with Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington. Travis Etienne went back to his old ways and now looks great again. They are the hottest team in the league right now, and they could win the Super Bowl. To round off my predictions, for first place in the AFC South, I had the Houston Texans. And what a great year for the Texans. CJ Stroud looked great, Nico Collins looked great, but really, their defense is what set them apart. They had by far the best defense in the league this year. They are on a 9-game winning streak and legitimately could make noise in the playoffs despite them being the 5 seed. And now, my Super Bowl prediction. I had the Lions versus the Chiefs, and I ended up settling on the Chiefs. I thought this because Mahomes is just so good, and I thought he would want to have a vengeance after that Eagles loss, but I guess not because they went 6-11. And now it's time for my preseason award predictions. For Comeback Player of the Year, I had Aiden Hutchinson. I had him because he had that brutal leg injury last year, and I thought he was just going to be a beast coming back, and he was very good, but I don't think he's going to win it. At Defensive Rookie of the Year, I had Abdul Carter. I chose him because he was a very high draft pick that was very good in college. I thought he was going to be really good, and he was good, but again, I don't think he fully deserves it. For Offensive Rookie of the Year, I had Ashton Jeanty. He was one of the top picks in the draft, and he was so good in college. I thought he was going to win it because the Raiders had no other running backs, and Pete Carroll was a great run coach. But it turns out that offensive line was just really bad. For my Defensive Player of the Year, I had Aiden Hutchinson. I chose him because he was on such a good pace before he got hurt last year, and I thought he was going to do it again. He was good, but obviously not as good as some other edge rushers. For my Offensive Player of the Year, I had CeeDee Lamb. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Last year, Ja'Marr Chase was on a bad team with a really good offense and a really bad defense in a huge air attack. That is nearly identical to what CeeDee Lamb had this year. But he got hurt and George Pickens almost took over as the number one, so it didn't really work out the way I thought. And finally at MVP, I had Joe Burrow. The reason I chose Joe Burrow is because it felt like it was his turn to win the award. Josh Allen won the award last year, Lamar won it a few years ago, and Mahomes won it a few years ago. Joe Burrow has been playing on the same level as those three for years now and just hasn't won it because he can't stay healthy. I thought that it was finally his turn to win it, especially after the amazing year he had last year. But he got hurt, so it didn't matter. And now for my current award predictions. For Comeback Player of the Year, I chose Christian McCaffrey. Last year, Christian McCaffrey was injured nearly the entire season, and this year he comes back and puts up 2,000 total yards. That is worthy of Comeback Player of the Year in my books. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, I chose Carson Schwarzenegger. Carson Schwarzenegger was worthy of the award in my books because he was just so elite as a linebacker, especially on that crappy Browns team. I think he deserves it more than any other rookie. For my Offensive Rookie of the Year, I settled on Tet McMillan. No rookies were super outstanding in my opinion, so I went with the guy that was consistent all year. Tyler Shuck had a nice case at the end of the year, but Tet McMillan was just good all year, putting up good games back to back to back. I think he deserves it the most. And for Defensive Player of the Year, it is obviously Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett broke the single season sack record that has been held for 20 plus years. Nothing else in my books can beat out Defensive Player of the Year more than breaking one of the biggest records in NFL history. And now for Offensive Player of the Year, I went with Jackson Smith-Njigba. I went with him over Puka Nacua because his numbers were just a little bit better. Puka Nacua did have a little bit better per game numbers, but I was just looking at overall numbers. Also, Jackson Smith-Njigba is in one of the most run-heavy offenses in the league, which makes it so impressive how good of numbers he put up. I didn't choose Christian McCaffrey because I just didn't find it that impressive that he was taking a lot of dump-offs and a lot of short runs for touchdowns when Jackson Smith-Njigba was making highlight reel plays game after game. And finally, my MVP pick. It was between Drake May and Matthew Stafford. When I tell you I searched far and wide for every single stat, I mean it. And after lots and lots of consideration, I ended up settling on Drake May. I went with him because of a few reasons. One, he has a 72% completion percentage compared to Stafford's 65%. He also had a better record. And when you look at the yards, Stafford had more passing yards, but when you account for May's rushing yards, he actually had more total yards. A lot of people say Matthew Stafford had more touchdowns, and that's why he deserves it. However, a lot of Stafford's touchdowns were fades to Davante Adams and Puka Nacua instead of running the ball on the goal line like the Patriots did. Drake May also had much less pass attempts than Matthew Stafford, and he still put up similar numbers. That to me shows just how efficient he was. Matthew Stafford also had Puka Nacua and Davante Adams at receiver. That just shows me that Drake May, playing with Stephon Diggs and Mac Hollins, was even better considering his receivers weren't as elite as Stafford's were. Drake May did have a much easier strength of schedule though, so I totally understand if you say Matthew Stafford deserves it more than him. I think Drake May deserves it just a little bit more, but if you disagree, I understand. Write down in the comments who you think the MVP should be. And here it is, my playoff bracket. Who do I think is going to win the Super Bowl? I will start off with the AFC and move on to the NFC. So, Patriots versus Chargers. I'm going to go with the Patriots because Drake May has just been so good this year. The Chargers are pretty beat up. I don't think they have what it takes to win. Now, Jaguars versus Bills. This is a tough game. Both teams are so good, but the Jaguars are on absolute fire right now. Trevor Lawrence is so good. That defense is playing really well. And as much as I love Josh Allen and the Bills, I think I have to go with Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Up next, Texans and Steelers. You know, Steelers, they get out first round every year. I think that's going to happen. Texans are the better team. They have an amazing defense. Their offense is pretty good as well. I'm going with the Texans. Now, moving on to the NFC side. Bears-Packers. This game is a real toss-up to me because obviously division rivals. As a Vikings fan, I know both teams really well. I think given that the Bears are at home, I'm going to pick them. But it does seem like the Packers just always have the Bears' number. However, the Bears did beat them in their last matchup, so I am going to go with the Bears, but I would not be surprised at all to see the Packers win here. On to the next matchup, we've got the Niners and the Eagles. This is a tough one. They're both really good. I think that the Eagles just don't quite have what it takes this year. I'm going to go with the 49ers. However, Eagles are super good. 49ers might be frauds. I mean, they had that amazing game versus the Bears a few weeks ago. But man, that's a tough one. And then when it comes to Rams and Panthers, I think me, along with 99% of the NFL fan base, is choosing the Rams here. They're such a good team. They're such a good team. I think they deserve it the most. Now, back to the AFC. We've got Broncos, Texans. Man, that's a tough one. So it seems like a lot of the times teams with the first round bye are rusty and they end up losing. Broncos offense is really good. They've both got elite defenses. I mean, these are the number 1 and 2 defenses in my opinion in the league. So that's a tough one. I think that's a tough one. I'm gonna pass it for now. I'm gonna go down here. So we've got Jaguars and Patriots. You know, Patriots, Drake May is my MVP, but they've had an easy schedule all year. Jaguars are on fire. Trevor Lawrence looks so good. I think I'm going to take the Jaguars. However, I would not be surprised to see I wouldn't even be surprised to see the Patriots win this Super Bowl, let alone win this game, win the Super Bowl. Now, onto the NFC. We've got the Niners and the Seahawks. Oh, man. I mean, the Seahawks beat them pretty convincingly a couple weeks ago. That defense looked really good. I think for that reason, I'm going to go the Seahawks. Now, we've got Rams and Bears. I think it's pretty safe to say that the Rams are the better team here and that they are probably going to win this one. Yeah, I think the Rams are going to win this one pretty easily. Back to this game. Man, Texans, their defense just looks so good. Broncos defense, I feel like, has looked weaker lately. Man, this is a tough one. I think... Oh, man. I really don't know. I mean, this could go either way. Both teams are super good. I think I am going to give the win, though, to the Broncos simply because they're at home. That home field advantage, I think, could help them out. Texans are super good, though. Now, AFC Championship. We've got the Jags and the Broncos. Jaguars, man, they are on fire. Just on fire. At this point, if they've made it to the conference championship, they've won like 10 in a row. I feel like I got to do it. I think I'm going to put the Jags in the Super Bowl because they just look so, so good right now. Trevor Lawrence is playing at that elite level. I think they can do it. Now, man, NFC Conference Championship. Rams or Seahawks? That's a real tough one. That's a real tough one. Both got really good offenses. Both have got really good defenses. They had that nuts game a little while back. Man, I feel like Stafford is going to do better in the playoffs than Darnold. Last year, Darnold played Stafford first round of the playoffs when he was on the Vikings, and Stafford just owned him. I feel like that might happen again. It might even happen in this game. I think I am going to go with Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams to make the Super Bowl. Now, a Jaguars-Rams Super Bowl. Who's going to win this one? You've got the hottest team in the league with Trevor Lawrence, and you've got just one of the most experienced and elite teams in the league with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. I can't see the Jaguars winning. I mean, I can, but I can't see them beating the Rams. I think my Super Bowl winner is going to be the LA Rams. I'm going to go with the Rams. They're so good. Stafford again, I almost chose him as my MVP. That defense is really good. I think the Rams are going to do it. They did lose to the Falcons a couple weeks ago, which is a little worrying, but I think I am going to stick with the Rams. Now, for teams that I think have a realistic shot at winning the Super Bowl, I think the Patriots can realistically win the Super Bowl. I think the Bills can realistically win the Super Bowl. I think the Jags can realistically win the Super Bowl. I think the Texans, I wouldn't be super surprised if they won. I think the Broncos have a really good chance of winning the Super Bowl. I don't think the Packers or Bears are winning the Super Bowl. I do think the Niners could easily win the Super Bowl. I do think the Eagles could also win the Super Bowl. I think the Rams could obviously win the Super Bowl because I had them winning. I don't think the Panthers are winning the Super Bowl, and I do think that the Seahawks could win the Super Bowl. So I think this year, more than any other year, it is completely up in the air of who can win the Super Bowl. So I'm excited to see it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. I put a lot of time into this. I plan on making a new video next year with my predictions. Seems like a lot of fun, especially over the summer when I don't have much to do. And yes, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.